Welcome to the CIO series, bringing together IT leaders who are driving modernization at organizations running SAP. Joining us today is Michael Mullis, Vice President of IT and Chief Information Officer at Ingevity, and Alan Manuel, Chief Product Officer at Protera.
Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to talking with you about your journey to the cloud and SAP S/4HANA. So thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
I see that you're actually in the office. So is this your first day back in the office? I know it's been a long time out of the office. What's it feel like?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. So we just built a new world headquarters building here in Charleston, South Carolina. We were meant to move in May of this year. So as you can imagine, we've got this flagship, beautiful building sitting here empty. So I'm in the office today. It's probably my third or fourth time that I've been in the last 6 months. I have a handful of my team who come in on a fairly regular basis, but most of their focus is on ensuring the building is up to spec, right? I mean, new building, lots of new technology. So they've been coming in and just testing everything and making sure the building's in tip-top shape and ready for everyone to move back in, hopefully at the end of the year. That's our current stance as a company. So that means early 2021, I guess. Hopefully we'll have people coming in here on a regular basis.
Great, fantastic. And for those who may not be familiar with Ingevity, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, what you guys do,
Sure.
some background?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ingevity is a global specialty chemical company. We're based in Charleston, South Carolina. This is our headquarters. We manufacture in the US, in China, and in the UK. We have 9 manufacturing sites around the world. We have 2 main lines of business. We have a specialty chemical business, everything from chemicals that go into pavement and road manufacturing, agricultural dispersants for spraying agricultural chemicals. We have products that go into oil field lubrication for oil rigs and drilling. And then we have industrial specialty chemicals, which is everything from inks, dyes, those sorts of products. And then in the UK, we have a company called Kappa, which is an engineered polymers company that makes coatings and resins and stuff like that. So that's our chemical side of the business. And then our other side of the business is a performance materials business where we make activated carbon for automotive fuel emission systems. So we basically take hardwood sawdust and then chemically re-engineer that into activated carbon, and pretty much every new vehicle here in the US and in China as well has our product in it in their emission systems.
Fantastic. Now I'm really excited to be talking to you about your journey to the cloud and your journey to SAP S/4HANA. Before we do that, maybe just a little bit about your relationship with Protera. We're obviously glad to have you as our customer here, but just to set the context for the listeners, maybe a little bit about your engagement with Protera.
Sure, absolutely. So we've had a fairly recent relationship with Protera, dating back to kind of April, May timeframe of this year. So we were in a co-located data center support model prior to our relationship with Protera. Protera is currently, or is now, our cloud services provider for managing all of our data center and network infrastructure. So yeah, it's been a great journey out from where we were. We pretty much had a black box service from a data center perspective. And now with our relationship with Protera, we've moved to the Microsoft Azure cloud, and we have a lot more visibility through tools that Protera has brought to the table, as an example, that just gives us a better view to the various data center and network services that we operate.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, one thing that I know is on the minds of a lot of CIOs these days is that transformation or that journey from maybe their existing service provider or maybe from their on-premise data centers to the cloud. So why don't we dive in there? Let's talk a little bit about your cloud transformation. What were you trying to do? What did you set out to do when you were at the start of your journey?
Absolutely. So a number of challenges and opportunities arose as we started to look towards this journey. I'll start with cost, right? Cost is an obvious one. If it was cost prohibitive, we wouldn't have done it, but it was actually a cost benefit for us. We were purchasing hardware and infrastructure in our former data center structure where we typically had to purchase fixed size equipment with room to grow. One of the benefits of moving into Microsoft Azure is we consume services. So we buy the compute we need, we buy the storage we need. So ultimately, we were able to reduce our footprint and reduce the spend on infrastructure. So that was a plus. So the cost was a benefit, definitely. One of our growth objectives as a company is inorganic growth, so growing through mergers and acquisitions. We've done a couple already. So we've had lots of opportunity over the past several years to simplify, standardize, and optimize our infrastructure and our application stack. So again, going back to now, our growth through mergers and acquisitions, going to Azure has given us the ability to scale a lot more quickly, a lot more agilely as well. So we can spin up services very, very quickly. We don't have to go and procure infrastructure to do that. So that was another benefit of moving to the cloud. Security actually was a big point. And it was actually a sticking point when I first pitched the idea of public cloud to my leadership team, concerns over how secure is that environment versus how secure are we having our own data center. And in all honesty, I think the argument that I was able to portray that went a long way was going with Microsoft. They spend over $1 billion a year on security for Microsoft. Yeah. If you just look at that on face value, that says a lot about their entire security model. They're banking their business on that environment being secure. So security was another, to me, was actually a plus going there. And one of the other areas where we're in the process of seeing some enhancements and additional benefits is in disaster recovery. So we had a 2 physical data center model for our DR in our former design. With Azure now, again, we can have that DR site kind of at a very small footprint, ready and waiting for us to cut over and then just expand on demand as we need it. So the whole DR model and approach that we're now moving forward with will be a lot more robust and resilient. So there's just a number of the benefits that really were part of the case for us to move to Azure.
Yeah, Michael, I know you're sort of a recent adoptee of the cloud, but even in just this most recent experience, the last several months or so, has there been anything surprising? Has there been anything where you thought you would get certain benefits, but actually something else came out, something maybe ability to do anything differently, or any surprises, hopefully good, maybe bad, but any surprises in the initial experience with that move to the cloud?
In all honesty, no. I mean, we did a lot of due diligence before we moved in. So rather than surprise, it has been more validation, which has been great, right? Where there were questions, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of different companies that have done this, that are thinking about it, that don't want to do it even. So cost for us was a benefit. Cost for others is not. Like, we don't do any application development, right? We're a package software consumer as a company. We don't write our own code. So for companies that are going there and spinning up workloads just to do a lot of app dev type work, it can be fairly quick and fairly easy to lose a bit of control over your footprint. And that means you're consuming on a monthly basis, therefore your cost is going up. We don't do that. We very tightly manage and control what we consume in the cloud. So for us, a benefit, not necessarily for others. So I'd say it's been more of a validation than a surprise. Okay, fantastic. Looks like, I mean, from your words, you know, you did your homework, you talked to your peers, and it sounds like what you thought you would get is what you're getting, which is fantastic. Let's turn now to a different topic. Let's talk about SAP S/4HANA. Now, when you made the move to Microsoft Azure, you were not on SAP S/4HANA. I think that was maybe something you were considering. Tell us a little bit about your mindset at the time and why you chose the path you chose and what you're doing with SAP S/4HANA today. We are actually doing a greenfield implementation. We're leaving behind all of our baggage and everything that was in our prior SAP. We're going new with Capgemini as our systems implementation partner. So we're basing our SAP S/4HANA on SAP's model company. And then Capgemini brings a lot of their industry experience and best practices and layer that on top. So we have a chemicals solution and we have an automotive solution for our 2 lines of business. We're pretty much out of the gate. we'll have a configured system available to us immediately, as opposed to having to go through the full design as is to be blueprint, the very long
Yep.
waterfall type process. We're going through a very agile process to launch our S4.
Yeah.
We started in July of this year, so we are actually underway now. We're just about to complete our design phase and move into build. It's an 18-month implementation for a global deployment, single global instance. And the challenge has really been launching a program like this that's enterprise-wide under COVID, right? So we're running at 100% remote. All of our consultants are remote. All of our employees are remote. So that has been a lesson for us to figure out pretty quickly, which we have done. We actually ran another project. We implemented a new sourcing system earlier in the year, and we did that remotely as well. And we actually leveraged that as an opportunity to learn how to and how not to do this type of a project. So it's underway. It's going well so far, and we're excited about the opportunity to really transform our business, go back to standard best practices. Our goal is not to modify the core at all. Zero customizations of our core. It's a pretty lofty goal, but we believe we can do it. And that will just help us in the future as we continue to grow and develop and leverage SAP.
Now think back when you were putting your plan together, you had the legacy systems, you were on your prior infrastructure, and you had ahead of you a couple of big decisions, make it to the cloud, and obviously you had to choose which cloud when, how to schedule your plan for your SAP S4 transformation, your greenfield implementation. Who did you go to for advice? How did you do your research? Who did you talk to? What were your sources of inspiration, if you will? Maybe speaking to others who are in the position you were in a couple of years ago. Tell us about that experience.
Absolutely, and there were lots and lots of discussions. So Cognizant supports our existing ECC6 platform today. So we started with them, and we had a conversation about what did they know about S4HANA and what could a business case look like. So they helped us put an initial business case framework together. We then brought in SAP's value engineering team, and they helped us further identify some of the benefits and some of the drivers and reasons for why we should do it. Then we brought in Deloitte, another consulting group, to really vet where we were before we took it to the board. So we did what we called was a phase 0 implementation with Deloitte. And again, it was leveraging their experience, their industry knowledge as well to help us take that business case to the board. So that was kind of that side of it. At the same time, we had conversations with all three hyperscalers. So it was Microsoft, it was Google, it was AWS. So we ended up going with Microsoft because we have a very large relationship with them on the Office 365 side as well. So it ultimately just felt right from an end-to-end integration perspective to keep everything together. But any of the three could have absolutely supported us and hosted us quite effectively. The big one for our industry, the chemicals industry, is there's an organization called the American Chemistry Council. And there's a CIO forum within that. There's about 70 CIOs that I have access to, and we just get together 2-3 times a year and we talk technology. We don't talk business, we don't talk prices, we don't talk products, but we share technology, and that's been invaluable. Just to hear from other CIOs where they are in their journey. We bounce ideas off each other. We learn from each other. Albemarle is another chemical company which is just up the road in Charlotte, North Carolina from us. And one of their executives is actually on our board. So we have a very close relationship with them, and Albemarle has recently gone live on S4. So that was another good opportunity for us just to kind of ask some questions and get some lessons learned and hear about some war stories and things to watch out for. So it's been different platforms. ASUG's been useful and helpful to us. SAP Inside is another group we're actively involved with. So it's just really getting out there and asking and listening and gathering your facts. So.
Yeah, great. Now let's go to COVID. You mentioned this was the first, I think, major project undertaken during this time. You're back in the office, so maybe things are getting better. Things are reopening for you guys. But let's talk about COVID for a bit. What was the impact on Ingevity? How long do you think we're going to be in this mode? What do you think the future is going to be like? Are we going to get back to normal, or things going to change? What's going to be like for you, your employees, and your customers?
That's the $100 question, right? Everyone's asking. I wish there was a simple, common answer that you could turn to. So for us as a company, as I mentioned, we are staying out until the end of the year. So that's we all of our facilities, other than our manufacturing sites. Manufacturing sites are fully back to operations. We have people there all the time, but our administrative and corporate offices are not open and will remain that way until the end of the year. Now, I mentioned there are a handful of people coming in. We do a case by case. I mean, there's folks that just aren't equipped or don't have the right surroundings at their home to be as effective as they can be in the office. So we're working with people to find the best fit, but the goal is not to come back to the office yet.
Do you think moving to the cloud was net positive, helped you through this, negative or neutral? How would you call it?
I think it's a positive, again, because it created that agility for us, and it's as a service, right? So we're doing infrastructure as a service in Microsoft Azure. So for my team, we can just focus on what we need to, which is more around the application support, the end user support side of things. We did it deliberately by taking our existing SAP and Friends, so all the other systems connected to our current SAP. We took them to Azure first. It gave us a little bit of experience before our S/4HANA implementation. But again, it was that also taking some cost out so we could redirect that money to our business transformation. So a lot of different moving parts there, but a logical process to get us there.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you could not have predicted this, externality when you launched your cloud journey, but you had to make the case. You talked a little bit about this. You alluded to this before. There's many strong arguments for cloud, and some people have their questions remaining. You talked about making the pitch to your leadership team. You mentioned that earlier in our conversation. Let's say I am a CIO at a fellow company and trying to put my pitch together. What advice would you give me what can I learn from you when you put your pitch together?
Sure. It comes back to some of the things I've already talked about, which was really understand what it is you're hoping to achieve. So understand the path forward. What does cloud mean to you? Why are you wanting to go there? So like I said, for us, there were a handful of just logical reasons: cost, disaster recovery, agility, all these various factors made sense. We looked at public cloud, we looked at private cloud. We ended up going, we're in a hyperscaler with a private solution. So we didn't go SAP public cloud, for example, because honestly for us, we didn't think it was mature and ready enough yet. I'm optimistic and hopeful that within a few years that will become a reality and something worth considering, but that wasn't where we ended up. So it's talk to people. Like I explained, I talked to a lot of people before we went on this path. Don't be afraid to ask for different consultant opinions, because you will get them, and we did. But ultimately, by hearing different voices and probing and asking the right questions, it got us to the right place where we took a very compelling case to the board. I actually had Torsten Wenzel, who is the head of the SAP industry business unit for chemicals from SAP. He came and spoke to our board of directors when we pitched. I brought him in. That demonstrated the partnership and willingness of SAP to work with us. So it's things like that. That's kind of how I'd encourage people to be knowledgeable and know what it is you're stepping into. Yeah.
Now, many CIOs, however, we do this in surveys and we talk to quite a few CIOs. I'm sure you do as well. You know the question I'm going to be asking you. Most CIOs have not made that journey, and some are not even planning that journey yet. Why do you think that is? I mean, what do you think is, I'm not going to say holding people back, but what do you think is maybe putting other priorities ahead of this cloud transformation priority? What's your take on that?
I think, again, I'm speaking on behalf of others, right? But I believe there's a number of different reasons. So SAP pushing their support for ECC back 2 years from 2025 to 27 gave people some breathing room. There's, particularly in the manufacturing industry, chemical industry, we have a lot of companies with very old systems like we had. So it's really understanding not just the SAP side of it, but the underlying foundational capabilities as well. People are looking at things like enhancing their network and doing SD-WAN technology, for example, to take cost out of their MPLS networks that they can then leverage that money to do something like an SAP. People are still going to Office 365. People are moving to Teams and so forth. So there's just a lot of change happening in the technology space that particularly, again, manufacturers have been slow to adopt historically. Not all, but many. So I just think there's competing priorities, and then COVID, right? COVID comes along and cash becomes king. Many companies are being very careful about what they spend, where they spend, how they spend. So all of these different things, and again, with SAP kind of delaying now, it's given people time to take a breath, to reevaluate, to talk to others that are doing it. So start the discussion at least and start focusing on really what's important to them. So that's what I've been hearing from folks. I don't know there's a single reason. I think it's a lot of things, and just the world as it is right now has caused people to kind of take a step back.
Yeah. And there is no, I don't know either. We talked to quite a few CIOs, and there's no really set reason. I think, as you mentioned, combination of many things. Some are obviously moving forward, and some are getting there. Let's talk about that moving forward, and maybe just a couple more questions here, if I can. Michael, let's talk a little bit more about Protera. So one of the choices that you made was in a partner for the migration, but also a partner for the managed service. And something I'm noting is that in our conversation so far, you haven't really talked about the day-to-day management of your SAP, and I'm taking that as a good sign, sign that that's something that allows you to and your team to focus on the issues that are more germane to the business. But you didn't know that before. You didn't have Protera as a managed service partner. So talk a little bit about your decision to choose a managed service partner and some of the things that you think are important when looking to make that decision.
Sure, absolutely. So how we met Protera was actually through Microsoft. So we reached out and we asked for some recommendations on who might be a good CSP, cloud services partner, to manage our Azure footprint. They very quickly recommended Protera to us. It's really a great fit for our company, and I think it's a great fit in both ways. The size of Ingevity, we're a $1.3 billion company. I think we fit nicely with Protera's company size model. We're not a $20-30 billion company that requires a lot more resources, a lot more focus. We have a very strong relationship with the leadership team of Protera. I in fact just had a call with the CEO from Protera last week, just to check in, just to see how the relationship's going. My team has very good open access, frequent dialogue with the folks from Protera. So it's been a very good fit. From a technology side, but also just from a process improvement side. Protera brings some great tools and tooling and processes to the table. I mean, your comment about, I haven't really talked a lot about operations because I don't want to talk about operations, right? That stuff should just work, right? That's the entry-level cost of IT. So if we're worrying about the day-to-day operations and not really looking forward and focusing on the business and what's next and how do let's start talking digital transformation and those sorts of things, that's where I want to focus, and that's where we are focused. And Protera as our CSP is just running the show for us in the background. So it's been a great relationship.
Fantastic. And then the final thing I'd like to talk with you about is focus. So you just mentioned that topic of focus. So you're on the cloud now. You have Protera taking care of your day-to-day. You're in the middle of your S4 transformation. COVID is changing, and you're back in the office. So things are hopefully getting back to normal. Let's look into that crystal ball a little bit. What are some of the other issues that are on your plate, or maybe strategic projects, as much as you can talk about them? Sort of what's next for Ingevity? You position the company, the IT infrastructure quite well here, and tell us a little bit about what's next.
Right, so for us, so we're doing the business transformation now. Our S4HANA implementation is not a technology project. It's not an IT-led project. I've got about 10 of my team embedded in the program, but it's run by the business, and that's how it should be, because we really are taking the opportunity to implement chemicals best practices across the organization and change processes and the way people operate in those processes, and technology enables that. So there's that side of it. But once we get a little further into this journey, it's really about digital transformation. That's the next thing. So robotic process automation, or automation in general, is a big area and a big focus that I'm excited that we will actually be able to do something with. We took a look at it with our ECC environment, and it just didn't make sense, again, because of the heavy customization we had. So that's one area. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, predictive maintenance, analytics, like that's a huge opportunity area for us. We're very excited about exploring as well as one of the next steps. But other digital areas we're going to start spending a little more time focusing on as well are things like 3D printing. One of our innovation centers now has a very large 3D printer that we've just recently acquired, and we're looking for opportunities to leverage that. But that creates volumes and volumes of data, which we didn't really have previously. So that's another great opportunity area. And even drones, right? The use of drones at our plants for safety inspections, the use of virtual reality, augmented reality or mixed reality, again, at our plants for teaching our engineers how to service equipment or do safety checks and things like that. So tons of digital transformation capabilities that the S4 platform will bring to the table for us to look at leveraging.
Fantastic, fantastic. Michael, let's say you could send a message back to Michael Mullis of, I don't know, 5 years ago, let's say, okay? You send an email and you're going to get it 5 years ago. What does that email say?
Can you believe we can all work from home and run the world from our houses? I mean, it's just, I mean, even 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
We had flexible working arrangements. I've always encouraged my folks that if they needed to be out of the office, but they had deliverables and things, I supported that. But now, wow, what a different world we're in. So I think that would really be the one thing that, you know, we can work anywhere. We've proven it, and it just works.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, when you work at home, I won't speak for you, I'll speak for myself. Working at home, I naturally think, well, everyone else is in the office. I'm the one that's at home. And then now you realize, especially when we have these conversations, everyone is at home and the world is still moving. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's definitely reality. So fantastic advice for your prior self. Maybe 5 years ago, you probably would have answered no. If you send that message to yourself today, obviously the answer is yes. Michael Mullis, CIO of Ingevity, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and looking forward to future conversations. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan.